Welcome back to WatchWined. Today, we got something really special and exclusive behind the scenes look at what it really takes to build a watch brand. I had the chance to sit down with Robert Kwok, the founder of Beaufort Watches, for a deep dive into his journey and what inspired him to start, the challenges along the way, and what's next for Beaufort. This is more than just an interview, it's a conversation, a podcast style sit down where we explore highs and lows of independent watchmaking. So whether you're sipping on a glass of wine, winding up your favorite piece, or just kicking back, plug in your headphones and enjoy the ride. Hey, welcome back to WatchWined. This is Alex Lynn. We have a special guest today from Beaufort Watches, Robert Kwok, all the way from New Zealand. I know we have a time zone difference, so thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick background. Robert and I met each other serendipitously at one of the watch events in New York called Wind Up Fair recently in October, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, it's in October.
18th of October.
And we decided to do a segment on founders of micro brands in the watch industry. And it's really good for our viewers to understand how some of the challenges that you have to face while building this brand from ground up. Without further ado, let's kick off this interview.
Yeah, let's do it. Sounds good.
Question one, what inspired you to start Beaufort Watches and how did you get into the journey of watchmaking and when did that begin?
Yeah. I'd say my journey in watchmaking is it's kind of in two parts. I would say when I first started, my goal was very different. It was 2018 and I was still a student in university and I was just a kid. At that time, I was very focused on joining tech startups and trying out things on my own. I joined, Auckland Startup Weekend a few times. First time was, I can't remember, I think it was like 2017 or something. But I joined two more times, pitched my idea one time and actually placed second place, which was pretty encouraging, but nothing worked. Everything failed. And when I joined other startups, it also just, flopped. So I was just a little bit discouraged with that side. During the time that I was at university, my whole goal was to graduate having started something. While I was working, I was doing a bit of a internship during the summer of 2017. Carried over to 2018 at uni at the same time, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I just really wanted to start my own thing and I just needed it to work. That was it. And at that same time, I had made a little bit of money from working and I was looking to buy myself a watch. I've always liked watches ever since I was a kid. I got my first watch when I was like 4 or 5, just some like weird, bulky quartz digital monstrosity. I still have that at home actually.
What brand, if you want me asking?
I have no idea. It was just some random thing that my dad had got me when we were in Hong Kong back when I was like a little child. But yeah, I still have that, and it's a bit of a sentimental thing. But yeah, so I've always liked watches, and at that time I was looking to buy myself a watch. I didn't actually know much during that time, and I remember stumbling across Undone Watches. It was they had a little, I think they still have it, a website builder where you can kind of customize your own watch. And I was just playing around with that I was just deciding for probably like 2 weeks between which one I wanted to get. And then I just realized, hang on, if I'm spending so much time looking at this one brand, why don't I just look deeper into this rabbit hole? That was the start of the journey. And, I really liked the designs that Undone had come up with. So I wanted to see more about where they got the inspiration from. And the design that I liked was like vintage inspired dial. And so I started looking at different vintage watches, trying to find what I liked really. And so I ended up finding a lot. It's a never ending journey, really, when you start looking into watches. The stuff that I liked, I couldn't afford at that time, not even close. And I did have my savings that I could buy it, but then I just throw away all my savings into a watch, which I knew that was like, that's just stupid. You just shouldn't do that. So I kind of tapped into that like entrepreneurial side of my head and wanted to see like if I would be able to start something of my own. I was also just starting to draw watches, especially since I wasn't able to buy the ones that I wanted. So I just, for fun, I was just sketching random watches, really ugly stuff when I first started. And yeah, a few months went by. I kind of just put on hold the search for buying a watch and I became more interested in actually trying to start my own thing. as I kind of started refining my designs, getting better at it, I ended up going online and finding like a watchmaking course for, I think it was like $20 or something. And I just learned about components, all the different things. I was a complete newbie at that time. So I had to, start from scratch. I didn't really know much about anything, to be honest. I couldn't tell you about different sapphires or anything.
How many sketches did it take, and how long were the courses before you got a good grasp? You're like, okay, these pieces is a requirement to actually build a watch. This is a must. This is what I can sacrifice for now. Love to hear your take there.
That course, it wasn't like a teaching course. It was just online, almost like an instruction manual. And so that gave me enough information to then approach these YouTube channels and just learn all the terminology that a newbie will not understand. After I learned all the terminology and all the components and stuff, then I was able to understand what people in the space liked, what they were even talking about. So learning the bits and pieces, that was just something that was fun to me. I just enjoyed doing that.
So you got the sketches, you learn all the terminology, you have an idea. Like, how did the name Beaufort come to place? Like, it feels very distinctive. Like, what's the story behind it?
When I started the brand, being from New Zealand, I wanted to have something really strong tied to New Zealand. So Beaufort is named after the Bristol Beaufort bomber, which was a torpedo bomber that served in the New Zealand Air Force back in World War II. The name just really resonated with me. I thought it was just really, really cool. So I thought, I'm going to name my watch brand after this plane. That was how that started.
That's super cool. And also you have a passion for like vintage watches too as well. Definitely matches the name and the invention.
Yeah, that was also to do with the time period of going with a plane from World War II. Is my first few sketches when I first started, I really, really wanted to do something in that time period of like 30s, 40s, and 50s. Watches from that period were cool to me.
Third question I have for you as an independent watchmaker, like what were the biggest challenges you faced when launching the brand? Was it money? Was it a combination of both resources, money, and all the above?
When I first started, I had $5,000 to go all out into it. It was hard to figure out where I should budget, especially at that time. I didn't really know much about the weight of different components and how certain things would be more important than others. And so I went through a bit of a learning phase, just practically talking to manufacturers and figuring things out on the road, quit my work, and I put university on hold. And so I bought a one-way ticket and just boosted off to Hong Kong. I've got an uncle that lives over there, so I had free accommodation and free food. Thank you, uncle.
Like, did it come to you one day? You're like, okay, I'm just gonna quit my day job and I'm gonna go all in on this. Was it that eureka moment? Like, I have a great idea. I think the pieces started to come together, or was it more planned?
It was more planned. I knew it was something I want to do. I've always been very like, I'm okay with risk, so I didn't care. I just wanted to do it. I just wanted to try it and see what I could make. So yeah, I got a one-way ticket, left NZ and lived over there for about half a year. And yeah, I was just working on prototypes. The turnaround time for a prototype was about a month. So once I nailed the case, I was basically just prototyping the dial design. So I went through a few different iterations on that and then came back after a little while. I did also take like a month or two to just travel. I hadn't even really left NZ for years at that up until that point. So took a little bit of time off. It was really just to go through China. I've different family around the city, so I just went to go see them.
Which version of the prototype is when you actually felt that you've accomplished something? This is starting to come to light. Which iteration?
I don't remember exactly, but it would have been, I think it was the fourth dial, the one that I ended up choosing to be the final one. That's the same one that I still have, minus the date window, the Aero Time connection.
Timer. I love it. My wife bought an Aero Timer from you. New York.
At the wind-up fair, right?
Yeah, at the wind-up fair. She fell in love with the dial. The service was impeccable, and this is why we're talking. And also, you have a great product. So really appreciate that. And now it's starting to come together now.
It's coming together. But quickly going back to what you were saying with like challenges, I launched during COVID. So I launched on Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter campaign was in 2019, but production finished in 2020 and right before COVID. And so we were at the tail end of production, and then COVID hit, and then it just turned into a bit of a show.
Well, if you had to reflect back that you could go back in time and change, it could be a process, iteration, whatever it is, right? What would you change? What would you tell yourself back then?
I think that is a good question. I think at that time, I underestimated it. If I was to go back in time and tell myself, do not underestimate logistics. For me back then, I thought, oh, it's no problem, I'm just going to package things up and then stick a shipping label and send it out to the courier. How hard could that be? But, the whole dynamic changed when borders closed. I couldn't do anything. So yeah, I was just scrambling to figure things out. In that scramble, I think it caused me a lot of stress. A lot of stress. I remember distinctly like thinking, I wish I had come prepared for. I know you can't prepare for something like a pandemic,
Mhm.
but I wish I had prepared for to do with the logistics of having to, ship things directly from Hong Kong. Because
Mhm.
at that time, my plan was to bring everything to NZ and then package things up and then ship it out. But yeah, I ended up working with a distribution warehouse where they would package everything and
Mhm.
then shipped everything directly from Hong Kong.
Was it hard for you to deliver that news to your backers on Kickstarter? And like, what was the reaction from the Kickstarter funders?
Yeah, people were very understandable. I think just because everywhere was locked down, and so
Mhm.
it was the same thing across the board. No one's really dealt with anything like this before, so there was a lot of confusion, and everyone was very nice and very understanding. So it was very reassuring to have that feeling of the backers being okay with the problems.
What were some of the feedback that people provided once you were able to deliver your first shipment to the initial backers? Be positive, negative, both, and make sure both.
We've kind of just touched on this, but just the length of time people had to wait. Kickstarter campaigns now is going into production.
Mhm.
You're gonna have to wait like half a year before you get it, and then you have the shipping time. So a lot of people they were understanding because it's a new brand. Yeah, one of the big things I just picked up was people don't really want to wait half a year for a watch.
That's
So
okay. No,
yeah,
totally understand. But you have a great product. It's worth the wait.
I guess so, yeah. And I tried to move. I tried to move to funding my own manufacturing as soon as possible. So with the third collection, the Sea Trekker, pre-funded a little bit. I still had to do a pre-order, but I had already ordered like a lot of the stuff to shave that time down a fair bit.
So let's shift to like brand philosophy and vision here. How would you describe the ethos or philosophy of Beaufort Watches?
Yeah, to be honest, Beaufort is kind of like a bit of my personal journey through watchmaking and horology, especially because when I started looking into watches, I didn't know anything about it. And only about a year later, I started my own brand. So
Mhm.
I had a lot of learning to do in that first year.
Mhm.
And then to this day, I'm still delving into weird little quirks and horology. And so, yeah, I would say Beaufort is it's a big reflection of where I'm at
Mhm.
with watches. Everything
Mhm.
I design is influenced by what I like. So that's from my perspective as like the designer of the
Authentically
collection.
you. So it's 100% authentically Robert and part of your watch journey then.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I've never really put myself out there as like the designer and whatnot. I kind of wanted the watches to speak for themselves.
Mhm.
Also, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. To be honest, I purposely like tried to like hide away from the spotlight for a while because I just thought no one's gonna see this watch that like some university student makes and is gonna want it. I just had a bit of that feeling of imposter syndrome, and I guess I'm kind of coming out of it these last couple of years. That was how that was back then.
Is it because you felt like you were the underdog and you're just up and coming and you felt like these bigger brands have longer heritage? And what drove that feeling essentially?
Yeah, I would say when you start off and then you compare with these like heritage brands, even, a lot of the micro brands still have quite a few years of experience. I was pretty intimidated by that. I didn't really know how to approach that. So I just thought, okay, Robert is, he just looks young and he just looks like a kid. So I'm just going to hide and let the watches kind of speak for themselves. And so that's what I did. I don't know.
Well, I think the world should know a little bit more about your background and how you got to where you are today and the brand Beaufort, what it stands for, because that's equally as important. And not a lot of viewers understand that. It's like anything that is produced out there. Anybody can produce a watch, but if there's no meaning behind it, it's just an item, right? There's something deeper than just a watch. That's what I see. And I purchased a watch from you. We'll talk about it later. Next question. So, what makes Beaufort watches stand out in the highly competitive world of micro brands and luxury watches? What's your take?
Yep, that one's very tricky. Every year there's new brands popping up, and every year brands are creating really, really cool stuff. So it's becoming very, very difficult to stand out, and
Mhm.
competition's tough. But at the same time, as a watch enthusiast, it's also cool to see all
Yeah.
these other brands and what I could be buying or adding to my collection, whatever. But from my side as a designer, what I try to do with Beaufort is I try to use a lot of different textures. So that's kind of what I started doing with the Fjordland collection. I already was playing into that with the Cavalli. So that was the second collection that I launched. I since discontinued that, but the dials, I've always had a big focus on having different layers. So it's not just like two-dimensional. I get a bit bored when I look at a dial and it's just flat and there's not much going on. So I've tried to add different dimensions, giving it different textures, something that you can look at and always find little nuances and be interested with the dial no matter what day or what purpose you're wearing it for. Oh, and the other thing is
Yeah, go ahead.
how it reflects with light. So
Mhm.
light reflection, that's something I've always been very interested in, is just like different angles, different textures, and how they play with light refraction. Kind of like little things that you can do to generate a little bit of a sparkle. That is something that I quite like.
That's awesome. I really like that. The dial is not just like flat gray. I love the
Yeah,
texture on this. There's a lot of attention to detail on this if you have this in person. So highly recommend you checking it out. We'll place a link in the comments.
thanks, Emma.
Your link collection. As part of that question to add on to it, there's a lot of competition, like you were mentioning. Were there a lot of support from the other micro brands when you're up and coming? Did you feel like it was a very supported community in the micro brand space, or did you feel that everyone's competing against each other?
No, I think the space is very supportive. Yeah, I think the microband community is very, very special in that because it's quite small, so everyone kind of knows each other. Everyone's just very nice. And if you ask for help, people are generally pretty open to giving it. Yeah, when I first started, to be honest, I didn't really like think about asking for help. I was just trying to get the Kickstarter campaign to work. So yeah, when I first started, I didn't really into the founder community or anything. I just kind of lone wolfed it. But yeah, people are very nice. I've been talking to the other founders of the New Zealand micro brands, so
Likewise.
Zenith and Draken. Yeah, I've been chatting to
Shout out to
them.
them.
Yeah, big shout out to them. They're also really cool, so definitely check them out. And yeah, so I mean, this is kind of going off on a tangent right now, but yeah, I've been talking to the other NZ microbrand founders. Oh, there's also McGret, the founder Dion. He's out of town next month. But yeah, I was getting in touch with them just to host like a mini watch event,
Mhm.
mini microband exhibition here in Auckland.
Mhm.
So that'll just be here at the Beaufort showroom. I'll have the microbrands each, we'll each have a little booth, and then there's also Walt. He makes custom watch straps. His Instagram channel is 10 to 1.
Mhm.
And so he'll have a little booth where he does have his custom made watch straps. And then there's also Porkino whiskey, which is going to be here as well. We're doing little whiskey tastings. So yeah, also anyone overseas looking to try out some New Zealand whiskey, highly recommend checking them out.
Well, I love
They're
whiskey.
really
That's
good.
my spirit of choice. I definitely have to fly over and
Oh,
meet you guys. That's a
yeah,
good
check
touch.
out Porkino whiskey. Very good stuff.
That would be a cool segment, whiskey and watches.
Hmm, that's an idea. That's an
That's off the
idea.
cuff. That's off the cuff. So who knows?
Yeah.
All right, on to the next question.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you see your designs catering to a specific set of audiences, or are they for anyone passionate about watches?
Yeah, it's for anyone passionate about watches. My customers range from people who are just getting into their first watch to people who have owned pretty extensive watch
Mhm.
collections.
Mhm.
So it's really just for everyone.
Mhm.
I tend to see it as it's a bit of an entry level watch
Mhm.
to general watch collecting. I think
Mhm.
the price range of Beaufort's collections are at that level. It's not, it's not ridiculous, but it's
Mhm.
also not like under, $200 where it's
Mhm.
something cheap. Oh yeah, so I think the customer base it's kind of everyone. Still predominantly men. I'd say about 95%, if not a little bit more, are guys. And actually, to be honest, a few of the women purchases are gifts for their partners. But I
Like,
designed the watch essentially for, I guess, guys, given the size of the watch,
mhm.
39, 40 millimeters. I'm
Mhm.
trying to go smaller. We'll see how things play out.
Do you think that's an untapped market in the watch space? I know my watch channel has over 95% men and a little over dominated by that male demographic. So do you think that in the future you'll be designing watches also catering specifically for women too, or unisex?
I think unisex is most likely. When I talk to my girl mates and they look at the watches, they all say the same thing, like, oh, that's really beautiful, but it's too big for my wrist. So I think the size of the watch is probably a very big part. But also from the women that I've talked to, they don't, generally speaking, they don't really get into watches as
Mhm.
much. So their thing is mostly jewelry.
Mm.
At least, all of my friends and stuff, they just don't care about they don't care about auto movements. I try to like show them all the stuff and the nitty-gritty, and then like I can just see their eyes glaze over. They just don't care. But but they think like it's very cool to have a mechanical movement in the watch. I try to talk a bit more about the inner workings. They don't really care. But
No,
yeah,
no, that's
I
great.
don't really, to be honest, to answer your question, I don't really know how much of an untapped market that is, because it's a risk if you invest into that production and then you're just left with a bunch of watches that you can't sell. It's need
It's a
to do a lot of
challenge. It could be a
yeah,
challenge.
yeah.
I know we talk about brand, vision, and your target audience. Can you kind of share with our viewers some insights into the materials and movements that you typically use across all your models?
Yep. All the cases are 316L stainless steel. Nothing out of the ordinary with that. It's just reliable. It's solid, and it's your go-to. There's that, and then something else that is I always debate when I'm doing a new model is what type of sapphire to use.
Hmm.
So for the aero time, I use a single dome sapphire where the top is dome and the bottom is
Hmm.
flat. That's just also my kind of a personal preference, where I like that distortion that you get from the view of having a single dome sapphire. When you look at
Hmm.
the sides of the watch, you get a little bit of distortion with the dial, which I just
Hmm.
find that to be pretty cool. And so I had that as well with the Sea Trekker, but
Hmm.
with the Pulse Timer and the Fjordland,
Hmm.
I was focusing very much on trying to keep the watches as thin as possible. And to do that, one of the things I did was going with a box dome sapphire,
Hmm.
where I can't do anything about the height of the hands. So
Hmm.
the hand stem is always gonna, it's what it is.
Hmm.
And you need a certain amount of clearance between the hands and the sapphire.
Hmm.
So my watch is at 0.7 millimeters.
Hmm.
And if I was to go with a single dome sapphire, or where the bottom of the sapphire is flat, then I would have to raise the case so that there's more clearance between the hands. So I went with a box dome sapphire, where you can kind of reduce the height of the case a little bit and then have the box of the sapphire stick out. You don't have to have the case as tall as you would if it was a single dome sapphire.
So
Yeah.
would you say like the proportions, the hardest part is choosing, well, I would say if you're looking at from a sapphire design aspect, changing one element will impact the entire proportions of the watch. That's what I'm hearing then.
Yeah, it would impact a lot.
So it's a lot more intricate, guys, versus guys and gals. If you were to change one element of watch, you kind of have to change a lot of things with the design, materials.
Yeah, the dimensions. The case would just be thicker,
Hmm.
and the aesthetic
Hmm.
aspect, where certain watches look better with a certain type of sapphire when certain
Hmm.
just watches don't. So yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act. Yeah, balancing the specs and the aesthetics.
Speaking of that process here, like about materials and whatnot, what is the design process like from start to end at this point in your brand? Like from the initial concept to the final production of the product?
It's been a few years now, so I'm a bit better at the process now. So I basically will do a bit of a mood board, where I have an idea of what I want. So I'll just mood board the things that I think are cool, things that I can draw inspiration from. That mood board could be quite large, and it keeps expanding. I'll always find, new references to pull from. Recently with the Pulsar Timer
Mhm.
collection, I was drawing a lot of my inspiration from buildings. So I've got a book, don't know where it is, but it's just like a brutalism book. And I remember just like reading through that, and I really, really like the style of the architecture.
Mhm.
And I wanted to try and incorporate some of that into the pulsar timer design. I guess I just play around with the design until I figure out something that works. And yeah, just start prototyping, iterating, changing.
Do you give yourself like a timeline on when is the cutoff point where I have to make this final decision, portion of the design process or manufacturing process? How do you determine that? Do you give yourself like 6 months, cutoff time, month five, time's ticking. I really have to make a decision on this. Is it kind of like
Yeah.
that?
I'm always working on multiple designs at the same time. So
Mhm.
like in my folder, I have like a lot of designs that are in the archives that I'm probably not ever going to make. But actively, I've got probably, I think, 4 or 5 that I'm just working on every day. Just little bits here and there, incrementally, just improving and refining these designs. But in the ideal world, I'll just have unlimited time and just keep making. But you don't. You have no. It's not possible. So sometimes you have to just be like, okay, I'll tell myself, okay, I can't just keep working on this for another year. I have to finish it up, and I'll just focus on a particular design and kind of put the others to the side, and then finish that up and then
Mhm.
launch. launched that one. That was what I did with the Fjordland. Untold interesting story. I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys find it interesting or not, but I'll tell you
Yeah,
anyway.
absolutely.
So the Fjordland collection, I had actually been working on a roulette dial design for like quite a while. So I had started working on that design since like I think it was like Feb or something.
Mhm.
And then, I kept refining. And yeah, this is where I learned the lesson the hard way of you can't just take too long with a design
Mhm.
because, Baltic also released their roulette dial and I just
Mhm.
saw that and my heart kind of sank because
Mhm.
I didn't want to just release the same kind of thing right after them.
But it's
So
not the same, right? It's something that you didn't know before that was being worked on by a different watch brand. But do you think that you might possibly revisit that design? I'm sure it's like aesthetically different. It's authentically you. It's got a story to it. What are your thoughts on
I
that?
don't know. I don't think I will. Like in that time, if I had released that, it would have looked like a blatant copy. There were differences. But I think in the watch world where I got a comment the other day where someone said, this is a Doxa ripoff. And they were talking about a sea tracker. So, people
That's
will,
harsh.
I'm not everyone, but they'll see similarities and they'll just, riff off that. So I really didn't want to play into that. I just didn't want to go that route at all. And yeah, I didn't want to deal with that whole thing. So I redesigned and yeah, I came up with a Fjordland, the version that I have now, the one that we are both now wearing. And I just completely put every other project to the side and I just put my head down and just got this one done as quickly as possible and just kept refining. Then like a month, just that drawing the design process and then just start prototyping ASAP.
That's a good story. No, thanks for sharing that extra tidbit. I bet these are some nuggets that people have never heard of before.
I actually had already had the cases produced. It
Yeah.
was literally just the dials. I was literally, I had everything with the watch ready. I had the movements and everything. I just needed the dials. And the dials obviously don't take that much time to make, especially
Mm.
when you compare it to like the time that it takes to make a case and all that. But yeah, so I just had to remake the dials, redesign the dials.
Well, that's a really good pivot. You were extremely resilient there at the time. My heart would just be torn, like if I had to do that. If I've been working on a project for months and
Yeah,
months and months, you're like, oh no, what's happening? It's a
yeah,
nightmare. But
but
yeah,
yeah.
like if you had to pick one watch, I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but this reiterate, is there a single design and single dial color and or plus strap that defines Beaufort Watches as a brand? Like which watch would it be and dial color plus bracelet or strap combination
Yeah.
that defined the brand?
Oh,
I know that's a hard one. That was a
that's a
mouthful.
hard one. I feel like just like my gut is telling me the sea tricker.
Okay.
I
Do
think
you have one on you? Do you have one on you right now?
I've got one in the next
No worries.
room. But yeah, I'd say the green dial sea tricker on the flat link bracelet. The sea tricker is kind of that the connection where I feel like I came into my own as a designer for watches.
Mhm.
Before with the Aero Timer and the Cavalli, I didn't really have a design process. I was kind of just making stuff up. I guess it worked because people like the designs. Part of the reason why I discontinued the Cavalli is because I didn't feel like it really resonated as strongly with where Beaufort is going.
Mhm.
So yeah, I discontinued that. And also, if I was to produce another one, it wouldn't be able to, go into not using Kickstarter. So part of moving into the sea tracker and launch on the website was discontinue, not making another production run of the Cavalli. But as time went on, I just didn't really feel like the design of the Cavalli was on pace with where I was taking Beaufort. But the sea tracker it's in that spot right between,
Mhm.
and I would say that watch also got probably the most wrist time on me out of all of my designs. Yeah.
Would you say like that watch sold or it didn't do so well? Like, can you kind of
I
give us an idea, like what got you to the point to decide, like, I really want to discontinue this? Or is it a combination of both?
So yeah, the Cavalli, I discontinued that just because of the main thing was just like it just didn't really resonate me. The case shape and
Mhm.
the dial, and I wanted to push more towards a bit of a industrialized style design, and it was leaning towards a different pathway. I still think it's cool, and
Yeah.
it sold really well. It was actually it was actually very well received. People loved it. But I want to go in a different direction
Do you happen
from
to
that.
have that piece like kind of showcased as a museum piece at your store or
I do,
in
I
your home?
do. I have two units here, and they're like some of the last ones I have. I mean,
That's
I have
cool.
one of each of the colorways. I've got
Cool.
the blue dial Pepsi
Mhm.
and the mint sunburst style here, but they're just for people to have a look at. It's not Can't buy it, unfortunately.
Like, I know we kind of touch ping pong back and forth. Like, what is your perspective on the role of independent watchmakers in shaping the future of the industry? There's a lot of big conglomerates out there with a long heritage. And to say if someone who were to start out, what advice would you give to them?
I think it's kind of the same with any industry. When you have a startup, you can just be nimble.
Mhm.
So that's where I see, where micro brands kind of take hold is being able to make new designs and just create new, unique things really quickly
Mhm.
and things that traditional heritage brands can't really do because it doesn't fit in with their design ethos or with
Mhm.
their decades or centuries long heritage. It
Mhm.
doesn't fit into their style. Whereas if you have a micro brand just starting out, you are still, with Beaufort even, I'm very much figuring out where I don't know where I'm going to be with my designs 10 years, 5 years down the line. So, it's a journey. And so I think that's where independent watchmakers and small brands, we can just experiment. And people aren't going to judge you for it. I mean, they're going to give you constructive, they're going to give you criticism. I'm not saying they're not going to judge you, but it's well received to be experimental and to try new things because we can. We don't have to stick to a rigid design language. That's my take is, just experiment and do cool stuff.
That's awesome. No, I think that's gonna really resonate for folks who are really on the fence of starting their own watch brand. I hope you guys heard that. Have you had any specific collaborations or partnerships with other brands that really help Beaufort grow or evolve to where it is today?
I have not. I haven't done any collaborations. Aaron from Pocono was just here earlier today. We've been chatting about maybe doing something down the line. So who knows?
Well,
But
it's
so
about time, right? It's about time.
yeah, yeah. So far, I haven't done any collaborations. But I would like to. Yeah, I'm definitely open to it.
We'll revisit this later on. So, how do you engage with your customer community? Like, and what role does their feedback play into your watch design? I know you get a lot of, I mean, there's always a lot of haters with videos and comments on the internet.
They provide some of the most valuable insight because they will give you the unfiltered truth about how they feel. And like it might hurt your feelings. Does sometimes. Sometimes it gets under my skin.
Yeah, same
But
here.
at the end of the day, you gotta put aside the feelings and just take this criticism for what it is. And
Mhm.
I've got a lot of really good feedback from the negative comments. It's a good thing in a way. Yeah.
So, what one negative feedback looking back that really stuck with you, and then you took action on it and saw like a positive outcome from it?
I don't really have like a particular one. When I see comments that are like, "Oh, that's an ugly watch," it's those kind of comments where, like, okay, there's not necessarily constructive criticism where when you just get a comment that says is like, "Oh, that's hideous." What am I going to do with that? But when I see those comments, it does motivate me to try and up the ante a little bit.
Mhm.
So yeah, I try to work on the design and improve it as much as I can. But I think yeah, I don't know. Sometimes when you make a design that's polarizing, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Mhm.
So, bit of a balancing act.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't really have a particular comment that I can think of that anyone's given to me. The main things are just when I see things like that's an ugly watch, dude, or something
It
like
really
that.
drives you, right? You're like, okay,
That
I'm gonna go back to the
that
drawing board.
drives me. Yeah, it
Have you
really
ever
drives
reached
me to
out
make
to
something
them or
better.
responded like, hey, can you provide more color as to why you think it's an ugly watch? Or you've been
I actually
tempted
haven't.
to respond?
Maybe I should. Maybe I should. I don't think the people that are hating are bad people or anything. I don't think they mean to like spread hate or anything. I think it's just like it just doesn't resonate with them, and
Yeah,
it's the internet, so you're welcome to say whatever you want.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I
But
appreciate
back to
that.
your original question, which was like how do I engage with people in NZ? It's a lot easier because that's where I am. So I've got the showroom. So I host events here, little watch meetups for folks around Auckland to
Mhm.
come around and talk watches and
Mhm.
have a space to just enjoy the hobby that we all love. But in terms of overseas, international, this is
Mhm,
something I've been really wanting to work on, and I'm
mhm,
starting that like as soon as possible.
mhm,
So gonna have a little Facebook group where it's
mhm,
like a for the buyers only kind of thing. Where, well, maybe not buyers only, but I'll have a Facebook group where I can talk to, like, it'll just be me interacting directly with folks that are buying Beaufort watches, and we can
mhm,
just have literally just open conversations about
mhm,
issues, designs, future projects,
mhm,
and show all the nitty-gritty things. And then besides that, I'm also looking at starting a bit of a like a behind the scenes kind of thing for a YouTube channel. Very different to, I guess, like what you'll see from existing watch channels, because I'm not a like a technically like a reviewer or anything.
mhm,
I'm just a
mhm,
brand. I'm just a brand owner. So it'll just
mhm.
be kind of me yapping about about stuff.
Yeah.
But that's where I plan on showing more insight and sharing more about the behind the scenes of how things work,
Mhm,
rather than, I think before I was trying to go with this approach of being a bit mysterious and
mhm.
releasing new stuff and not showing things. But I think people want to see, people want to be brought on the journey, and especially as this is also my journey, why don't
Mhm.
we all just share this together? So yeah.
Absolutely. I want to be part of that journey, and I appreciate you being on this segment. I think people really have to listen to what you have to say, because what you're telling us is extremely valuable. As an entrepreneur myself, I started this watch wine channel several months ago
Mm.
as a hobby, and then and evolved, and I really love it. So, and that's why I constantly reach out to not only independent watchmakers, but higher end luxury brands, see if anybody will give me a day and time to talk about their journey. And I think that's critically important in anything that you do. So thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you for, out, and I just enjoy talking to you as well because it's just fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, like, and gals, like, it is off the cuff. Some of this is off cuff, and we purposely wanted to be this way. So it's authentically us speaking to each other. But yeah,
Yeah, this doesn't seem like an interview or anything. This I feel like I'm just chatting with you.
yeah, no, this is great. And this is how it should be, right? Speaking of which, we were talking to Fjordland, both of us are wearing this watch. Why did you choose
Yeah,
to wear it on a day-to-day basis versus all the other collection? Like
yeah,
I saw you wearing the same watch last time with the different bracelet, the same bracelet as me.
mm,
But why
yeah,
today? Is this your daily wear or part of the rotation?
yeah. This is my daily go-to. My daily wear has changed throughout years. For a period of time, for a long period of time, it was just the Aero timer, and
Mhm.
then, to be honest, I kind of just wear whatever I release. Come to think of it, I think that's what I'm doing. I think I'm just wearing whatever what I'm releasing. It's like I don't have a favorite child. I kind of just go with the newest child. I
Do
don't
you have
know.
one for every season though? Every season?
Well, I'll change it up, depending on like outfits or events and stuff. If I want to go, dress things up, I'll just go with an aero timer. The navy gilt style is pretty
Mhm.
good. But if I want to go out and do some hiking, swimming, whatever, I'll, chuck on the Sea Trekker, because that one can take a beating.
Mhm.
So that one's my Sea Trek is my travel watch. I'll take multiple watches when I'm traveling, but Sea
Same
Trek
here.
is yeah,
How many do you carry?
yeah.
How many watches do you bring with you every time you travel?
Usually just two or three. So now that I have the Fuel and the GMT,
Mhm.
this is obviously what I'm going to wear when I'm, actually traveling. But if I'm going out and just like day-to-day stuff, Sea Trekker is kind of what I like to wear. Yeah, the pulsar timer, I kind of reserve that for more special occasions, because I don't want to bash that about when I'm on a hike or something.
That's reasonable.
It's a chronograph, so
Yeah,
but it's got no business being on a mountain.
likewise. I carry three watches with me everywhere I go when I travel. One for like activities like hiking,
Mm,
for the general casual wear, one for, more formal wear. If I'm
yeah.
wearing a tie, obviously, classic leather strap. So I'm definitely with you on that particular. Let's skip to the next one here. Are there any other watch brands or watchmakers that you personally admire? I know you mentioned one earlier, but what are your top three brands that you truly
Mm.
admire?
Like any
It
brands or
could
like
be
micro
any. It could
brands?
be any. Your top three. It could be a mixture. How about say, let's do your top three luxury watch brands and then micro brands. How about that? Two separate
Yeah,
buckets.
yeah. Top three. in terms like what I draw inspiration from is probably
Yes.
different to like, yeah, let's go with that one. I'd
Okay.
say
Okay.
the big boys that I draw inspiration from, I'd say Vacheron is very interesting. I don't necessarily draw like I don't draw really any design language from them, but I look to them for their execution, their proportions, and it's so insanely exquisite. It's all just beautiful to look at.
Is there a particular model from BC that you admire?
I don't know if this is just me being bland, but I'd say the 222. Who
Mhm.
doesn't like that? Who doesn't like the
I love the
222?
222.
Yeah, it's kind of your normal, just common answer maybe. I hear that a lot from other people as well. But yeah, I love that watch. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, what else? The Longines Chrono. I just forgot.
It's okay. So Longines.
Yeah,
So we got BC and then we got
yeah,
Vacheron.
BC, Longines, Longines, and Cartier.
Oh,
Yeah,
amazing brands. I love all three.
yeah. Cartier's yeah, I just love their designs.
Likewise. All right. Well,
Mm.
let's talk about the future of Beaufort. Now, what's next for Beaufort Watches? Is something you can tease out? I know you were talking about like YouTube channels earlier. Is there a timeline on when viewers are expect to see that channel, or is it already live? We could share it. And for the watch side too, so that's two-part question. So
Yep.
projects, engagement with the community, creating content, and watches itself.
The YouTube channel, we can probably expect that this month. Hopefully, I'll start posting up mid or maybe in late December, depending on how busy things get. Things are pretty busy at the moment, trying to, yeah, do a bunch of things at the same time. So we'll see with how that goes. But yeah, should be this month. And I mentioned earlier that I've got the mini watch exhibition,
Mhm.
very, very many, many exhibition. It's just we don't really have we don't have watch shows in New Zealand, so it's like a mini watch show here. So that's next Friday. And then yeah, in terms of the watch designs, I've got yeah, quite a few on the pipeline.
Nice.
So I'm working on a extension of the Fiordland collection. So this new model is going to have the NE57
Mhm.
Seiko movement. So pretty excited for how that's going to come out. I've got
Mhm.
the prototypes
Can you
now.
can you tease like roughly estimate like when that's going to be released, or is that something in the hush hush for now?
Not necessarily hush hush, but I just haven't really, it's not ready. I just need to figure it out and then I'll get onto it. Yeah.
Gotcha. And what was the next one that you were talking about?
A chronograph. So I want to expand on the chronograph connections that I have. So yeah, started off with the pulsar timer earlier this year,
Mhm.
and I want to do more with the chronograph designs that I had made before the pulsar timer. So
Mhm.
yeah, I created a ton of iterations and I liked quite a lot of what I had made. So trying
Mhm.
to see if I can finish something up
Mhm.
in Q1 next year, see if I can get something started and ready next year. Yeah.
No, really excited to see
I've
that.
actually I've already finalized certain parts of the design. I'm really just refining on the dial. Yeah.
Are you giving yourself a timeline to conclude on a final verdict on what that dial look like, or do you think
Uh,
it'll be early, like let's say early next year in
Oh
Q1?
yeah, if I go through with it, it'll be very early next year because I've got the cases that are ready. The I've got a ceramic bezel for this one,
Mhm.
tachymeter ceramic bezel, so that one's already ready. And yeah, just refining on the dial, and then once the dial's ready to go, then just make the dials and assemble it.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to see the teaser video or post. This is the tease right now. No, really excited for that. Let's kind of talk about future. I know we talk about, well, we don't know what's going to happen, you know, what it'll evolve into for Beaufort, but
Mm.
at least in the next 2 to 3 years, what do you envision Beaufort looking like? Do you envision yourself building a sister brand, or just expanding from what you already have? Are you going to change things up, the vibe, as in like the design language to be more playful? So yeah, I'll let you take it away there.
I would love to open up a sister brand where I can just make whatever I want. Yeah, with Beaufort, it's a bit more serious, even though, like I said earlier, it's a micro brand, it's a startup, and
Mhm.
so there's a lot of room for experimentation.
Mhm.
But it's not the kind of experimentation where I can just make something goofy, uh, so it doesn't really fit in with the brand. So I'd quite like to start up a bit of a sister brand where I can just explore a bit more of the fun side of my design language, just yeah, trying something new, different from a completely different perspective. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. But right now, I need to just focus fully on Beaufort. Yeah.
That makes sense. Are you already working in parody on that sister brand idea?
It's more on the back burner, but I work on it when I have free time as just like for fun. It's just fun for me. So yeah, it's kind of I design watches for work, but it's also just my fun time. So like, I don't know, it's not really when I design watches, it's not really work for me. I just enjoy
That
it.
works.
Yeah, so we'll see how that side goes. But you know, the more I spend time working on those designs, I've actually pulled a few of those design elements over into some of the designs for Beaufort.
Mhm.
So it's kind of been, it's like a little mini resource pool that I'm
Mhm.
also kind of taking from.
Thanks for teasing that out. I'm definitely looking forward for what's to come here in the next like 3 to 5 years, even 10 years. You definitely have a follower here and a supporter. So I know
And
we're
likewise, WatchWined.
Thank you. Some closing thoughts here, a couple questions here that I have, and we can wrap this up. For someone who's just discovering Beaufort Watches, what's one thing that you want them to know about your brand?
There's so many things.
Is there a top two at least?
Someone who's just discovered Beaufort, I would say delve into the nitty-gritty of the designs. Look past the specifications when you're first, finding out about Beaufort, and then just explore the dials, explore the designs, see what resonates with you, and kind of get lost a little bit in the visuals.
At least for me and my wife, when we first discovered your brand at the wind up fair,
Mm.
it was the design. It was the details of the dial, the overall aesthetics that we found appealing. And that's what we gravitated towards, the uniqueness of it. So definitely what you just said resonated with me personally. So thanks for sharing that. Okay. Any advice for like aspiring watchmakers or even entrepreneurs like looking to enter this industry in particular? What's that one advice that you want them to take away?
This is just kind of going from what I learned, which was when you have momentum, don't take a break and just keep going because you want to build on that snowball effect because if you stop, that snowball just kind of melts. So that's something I kind of learned the hard way during those COVID years. I really should have been pushing really hard and making a lot more designs, going flat out. But I didn't. I just took time off. You know, the Kavami did pretty well on the Kickstarter and then on the website, and so I can't, I just thought, oh, these times are great. It's always going to be great. So, so I took my foot off the gas, and then I figured I learned, pretty soon after that you just can't do that. There is no room to do that. I know that's pretty obvious sounding, when you look back in hindsight. But yeah, I would say when you have momentum, just ride out and just don't stop.
It's easier said than done, but that's really good advice. To wrap this up, where can viewers follow Beaufort Watches and stay updated on your journey?
Definitely the Instagram page. So check out Beaufort Watches on Instagram. That's kind of probably the most frequent area where I'm posting. But pretty soon I'll be, having the YouTube channel. So that's where I'll be posting as well. And then also the Facebook group. So, but yeah, I guess if you just follow both on Instagram and maybe both on Facebook as well, you'll soon see the Facebook group. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'll also be sending out an email to like the existing customer base that I have about everything. So yeah.
Do you have the YouTube handle already that you're able to share, or is that TBD? Okay.
TBD.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Robert. I really appreciate your time, and it's been a really wonderful conversation. A lot of these questions are off the cuff, so I'm putting Robert on the spot. And be kind. Like, subscribe, comment below. We'll place all the links of all the watch brands that we've mentioned and all the models as well. Thanks for watching.